There is something very nostalgic about just having a Bible in my hand. And whatever the medium may be, people have been turning to the Bible for support for years. And every time they are faced with a challenge, they turn to the Bible. And the main challenge that they're trying to find an answer for is, how can I reduce this anxiety in my life? According to data released by Amazon, the most highlighted passage in a Kindle ebook is also one of the most popular passages in the Bible, and this speaks to reducing anxiety and finding trust in God. So these verses are Philippians 4:6-7. And it reads, "Do not worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." So again, this is a letter from Paul to the people of Philippi. He just has a deep love and affection for the Philippians. Also, it is known, and many Bible scholars agree, that this letter was written while Paul was in prison himself. So the idea that Paul is encouraging these Philippians not to be anxious even during his own incarceration really is an inspirational verse for us to turn to. It should be more encouraging to us. It would also appear that this struggle of anxiety, it appears to be timeless. Like, Paul is telling these people, do not stress out, try to reduce this anxiety. And yet at this time, we are faced with a lot of those same struggles. How can we reduce that anxiety that we are currently facing? The passage truly speaks to how terrifying life often is, especially if we are taking risks, especially if we are challenged by crisis. I think we all can agree that 2020 was a crazy year where we were faced with a lot of different crises, whether it was losing your job, not being able to see a family member for months on end, maybe an eviction notice that came in on your apartment. Whatever it may be, people faced crisis day in and day out. And the element of risk is embedded in this passage. The verses before and after the passage, they encourage the people of Philippi to rejoice in the Lord. That's what he starts with. Rejoice in the Lord. Don't be anxious about anything. He goes on to say, also make sure that you're enacting gentleness. Make sure that you're choosing to do whatever is true, whatever is right, whatever is noble. Paul doesn't just write to us and say, hey, don't be anxious. He says, don't be anxious about anything. This challenge can seem overwhelming. Like, seriously, Paul, you have no idea. Well, I know I've never been in prison. I don't think I would do well in prison. But I think Paul had a pretty good idea of what some anxiety can feel like. But he goes on to offer steps of how we can find peace in our lives. The very same line states how we can find this comfort and how we can find this peace. And it says, by prayer and petition. We can all understand the feelings of circumstances being out of our control. And a lot of times those circumstances that feel uncontrollable, those are the ones that we care about the most. But this passage offers us comfort. As Christians, we have a way to acknowledge our anxiety, to even plead in our despair and feel like we are not alone in this. And that is some good news, ACF. Love you guys.